going to call this meeting to order at 5:06 p.m. Welcome to the Easton Housing Authority April 13th meeting of the Board of Commissioners conducted by GoToMeeting. We'll do a roll call. Tom Tebow?
Here.
Dennis Sheedy?
Here.
Chris Ann Sheedy?
Here.
Don Burrows?
Here.
Pam Whittup is present, and Executive Director Kathy Steiger?
Here.
And just let the records also show that the meeting is being recorded by Easton Community Access Television. The first item on the agenda is the minutes for the February 9th, 2021 board meeting. May I have a motion for discussion and approval of that?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 meeting as written.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Dennis Sheedy and a second by Commissioner Tom Tebow to review and approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 board meeting. Any questions?
I'm all set.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call, yes or no vote, voice vote. Commissioner Don Burrows?
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Tebow?
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Dennis Sheedy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whittup votes yes, so it is unanimous. Approval of the minutes for the February 9th, 2021 board meeting. Agenda item number 2 is the accountant's compilation of the financial statements as of February 28th, 2021. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the financial statements for February 2021 and put on file.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Dennis Sheedy and a second by Commissioner Don Burrows to accept and place on file the accountant's compilation of the financial statements as of February 28th, 2021. Is there any discussion on this report?
Kathy, is there anything that we should, anything on here that is of note?
Well, the reserves are still high, but as Dan mentioned at the budget meeting last month, some of that money is for the Chandler Way septic, and we're trying to spend down some of the money. It was fairly well reviewed at last month's meeting by the fee accountant, and we're still doing very well.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will take a roll call, yes or no voice vote to accept and place on file the accountant's compilation financial statements for as of February 28th, 2021. Commissioner Burrows?
Yes.
Commissioner Tebow?
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennis Sheedy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whittup votes yes, so it is unanimous. The third item on the agenda, the March warrant. I would like to ask the board members to make a correction to the total amount. The total amount should be $164,851.73. the amount carried over from page 9 of the revolving account report should have been $56,569.64. So, sorry, Kathy, we lost $3,000 against that. So I would like to ask the board for a motion to approve the March warrant in the amount of $164,851.73.
I'll make a motion, we approve the warrant for March 2021, in the amount of $164,851.73.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Don Burrows and a second by Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy for the to approve the March warrant. Is there any question or discussion on this report?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to a roll call, yes or no voice vote. Commissioner Tom Tebow,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennis Sheedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Don Burrows,
Yes.
and Commissioner Widdop votes yes, so it's unanimous. We have approved the March warrant in the amount of $164,851.73.
Thank you for that correction, Pam. Sorry about that.
No problem. When I saw it, I was thinking, oh, you're trying to absorb that thing that Dan Robillard was talking about, and you just lost 3,000 towards it. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, which is this was a topic that we discussed at the last meeting, and the executive director has presented a draft for the contract of employment. I would like to open it for a motion and discussion now.
Kathy, could you just talk a little bit about what you presented?
Certainly. This is the current contract for employment that we approved back in 2015 when I started. Everything in the draft is the exact same as it was, with the exception of the salary. I'd like to request a 5-year contract. I know before we did a 3-year with a 2-year extension, if the board saw fit to do that. Everything else in here, with that exception, is all the same.
Okay, one of the things I think on the contract, and this is, I guess, to appease DHCD, they would like the contract date to start on the first day of the fiscal year, which is April 1st, correct?
Yes.
And then December, the last day of from 5 years from now. But from what I see, if this is acceptable to you, I'm certainly supportive of it. And I think it just puts us in a situation where we have an executive director with a contract. And I'm very happy to support it. That's my comment.
Thank you.
I agree. If it is something that you're comfortable with and there's nothing else that you would like to see altered or changed, obviously this is a good time to discuss it, but I'm assuming that you're happy with this.
I am. Yeah, I'm very comfortable with it.
Can I just bring up a few things as a point of interest that kind of confused me a little bit? Is under item number 6. The second line, 4, 6 weeks. I don't understand what, I'm assuming it should be 6 weeks.
Yes.
And then
Or
in number,
it should just be for FOR, not you.
oh, okay, all right.
Sorry about that. That will be corrected.
Spell
Yes, I
check
was like,
didn't get
4
that, huh?
6-week intervals.
And then in number 8, it's in the first line, entitled to 3 and then 2 days personal time.
Okay, yeah, originally I had requested 3 in the first contract, and the board had voted on 2 the first time. I can take that, I have no problem with that.
So it's 2 days, is that,
That's what it was, yes.
okay. Just minor little issues, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's not, what had happened was, I had trouble finding the original contract on my computer, and this reverted back to the one before the changes were made prior to 2015, and I didn't catch that.
Thank you, Dennis. Those are 2 things that I had questions about too. And I mean, typically on a contract, you would, when you're talking numbers, you would write out the number, and then in parentheses, you would put the numerical character. So I had the same question on that, 4 and then 6. But the amount should be 6, is that correct?
6 weeks, yes.
Okay. So rather than the FOR 6 weeks, could we make that SIX and then put parentheses around the 6?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, we can do that.
It's just,
Yes,
it's nitpicky contract stuff.
that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay. I also have a question on the very first paragraph, agreement. The third line, it says Commonwealth of Massachusetts and having a usual place of business in, I don't think it's Norfolk County. Shouldn't that be Bristol County?
Yes, it is. Like I said, this was the contract I had before,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't find the original for whatever computer upgrades we did, and I did miss that as well. I will change that as well.
No problem.
Thank you.
Just little things that I'm picking up. So
No, that's great.
We'll correct that from Norfolk to Bristol County, and
Mhm.
hereinafter called the authority, and Kathleen Steiger of, yes, that sentence there, and Kathleen Steiger of said, hereinafter called the, Kathleen Steiger, I would strike those 2 words, of said.
That was actually that was illegal. Jeffrey Driscoll, the attorney, had drafted that initially, so
Okay.
I have no problem striking that. It quite truthfully doesn't make sense. I just didn't change that paragraph at all.
Any of the other board members have any comment on those 2 words, where, and Kathleen Steiger of said hereinafter called the executive director?
I often read things by lawyers that make no sense, so I have no problem
Okay,
taking it.
we'll leave it. Okay, but okay. And, let's see. Then on the second page, letter D, the executive director shall keep regular books of account showing receipts and expenditures, and shall render to the authority at each regular meeting or more often as requests, or more often as requested. Is that kind of a redundancy, or at each regular meeting or more often as requested? Or it could just be me not understanding it.
Where are you looking, Pam?
Pardon me?
Where
I'm
are you
looking
looking?
on the second
Five
page,
D.
5D.
Or often as requested by the board.
I think you could leave both in there, more often as the board requests.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no objection to that, the other board members. So we'll ignore that.
No.
Let's see. And then letter F, 5F, the executive director shall be responsible for the selection of tenants, the drawing and signing of leases, the collection of rents, OF.
Mhm.
Okay. On page 3, item number 7, the executive director shall be entitled to 1 1/4, in parentheses, the number 1 and fraction 1/4, days of sick leave for each month of continuous employment, but no compensation shall be made to her sick leave accrued. Let's see, sick accrued, I wonder if the leave is left out there by mistake. No compensation shall be made to her sick accrued for her account, or is that just a shortened terminology? The term sick accrued.
I think it should say sick leave accrued.
To her for sick leave accrued, yeah.
So we will add the words leave between sick and accrued so that it shall
Yeah.
correctly read, shall be made to her sick leave accrued for her account.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Number 9, there's another extra letter there. The executive director shall use her own automobile for transportation. The executive director shall be entitled to receive an automobile mileage in the
I
accordance.
think you just get rid of "and" altogether.
Thank you. Yes.
To
Okay.
Kathy, did you convert this from a PDF to Word?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yep, typical stuff when you do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Okay, so.
But thank you, Pam, for catching it all, because nobody,
Yeah.
I'm the worst proofreader you'll ever catch, so.
Apparently I am too.
And number 10 on the next page, I'm having some confusion with that sentence. The third line, well, it goes, the second line, expenses of the executive director for professional and office travel. And then this part here, meetings and occasions adequately pursue necessary. That looks to me like maybe something needs to be relocated there. This is number 10.
Yep.
The top of the 4th page.
Yeah, that doesn't read properly either.
Maybe you should say deemed necessary.
Sure. Yes.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, so we will correct this to read, the executive director for professional and official travel, meetings and occasions deemed necessary, and we'll strike the word adequately and pursue. Thank you very much, Chrisanne.
I'd like to bring up number 11, because I'm not sure why that's even in there.
That's an attorney. As I said, my original contract many years ago was through Attorney Driscoll. And
Yeah.
that was in my last one as well.
I would strike that whole thing. I don't think you're responsible for, you can make us aware of trainings, but it shouldn't be something that could come back on you, I don't think.
Well, if you don't do your trainings, they will cite you in your AUP or PMR that,
Yeah, I guess.
but why it's in the contract, I don't
It's
quite
an employment,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah,
An
I
employment.
wouldn't, I agree with you, Dennis. I wouldn't want that to be something, if you have a commissioner who is, a member of your supervisory board who refuses to do it, you should not be responsible for it.
Mhm.
Unless you're gonna start disciplining individual board members.
Not me. No, I think that the reason it's in there is to protect me, that if a board member didn't do training and something went amiss, it kind of protects the director, if you will, because the board member didn't have training and was giving you directives otherwise. That was my understanding, and that goes way back. I don't have a problem striking it. I mean,
No, it makes sense what you're saying, but the way this is worded does not give that interpretation. But it's probably legal speak.
Well, we did have a commissioner at one point that was struggling with their training.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be in Kathy's employment contract. That-
Right, it's almost as though we're talking about what, what she's going to be responsible for, and then all of a sudden there's this in here, which looks like it's, oh, and by the way, the Board of Commissioners is responsible for this.
I think it's more of a protection for myself, quite truthfully. That if I'm getting a directive from the board that isn't necessarily ethical or within the guidelines of what is allowed, and the board member did not get training, it protects the director, was what my understanding of that was.
I'm fine on leaving it in there, if that's your understanding. I don't see it, harming Kathy or, and it might hold a board member feet to the fire to do something. Might be, other board members could say that too.
I mean, when you read this in comparison to what the DHCD wants you to sign for a contract, I mean, there's all sorts of things that you're technically responsible for, even if you don't fix something because you have no money for it and somebody, ends up being injured, it's your responsibility. So this is almost much less cumbersome than what they have.
I would leave
I
it in.
haven't looked at that in a while.
Did I hear you, Don Burrows, say that you would leave it in?
I would leave it in. Fine the way it is.
Yeah, maybe if it can be rewritten to kind of clarify what you think it is supposed to do so that it makes better sense. I don't know.
I don't know how you would rewrite that, truthfully.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'm just bringing it up that I thought it was
Okay. And I
an
have no,
interesting point. I don't see it ever coming into play, so.
thank you, Dennis. I have no objection to leaving it as it is. Tom has said he has no objection. Tom Tebow has said he has no objection. Commissioner Don Burrows has said he has no objection, and Commissioner Chris Sheedy, do you have any objection or want it changed?
I do not have an objection. If everybody else is comfortable with it, feel
Okay.
free.
Okay, it seems as though we are unanimous that it's okay to leave it in as it is.
Thank you.
So we will, thank you for bringing it up, though, Dennis. It's good to be questioning these things. And
I have one other question about number 1, where it references the salary amount. And if this is a 5-year contract, and it says that the beginning annual salary is what's stated, I just didn't know if we need to make reference to the fact that it will be, the contract might not be renegotiated for salary purposes, but when the DHCD allows a salary increase for a director, that, you know, it's not going to be held to the 89,000 for 5 years. No, I just feel like that's just, it doesn't
Right.
give any room for that to change.
Well, in paragraph 3, it has allowable annual increases. In number 3,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which doesn't really hold true either because DHCD controls that.
yes, they do.
is that acceptable to you, Commissioner Chris Sheedy?
Yeah, but once again, like we just said, we don't really technically have anything to do with it anymore, so. But leave the paragraph in there and hopefully maybe it'll change back to we get that right back that we're supposed to have.
Okay. The final 2 things I have on the last page. Number 20, this agreement executed in triplicate shall be construed as a Massachusetts contract. A is absent, needs to be inserted as a Massachusetts contract. And the last thing is, in witness whereof, the Easton Housing Authority has caused their presence to be signed by its duly authorized chairman and treasurer, and its seal hereto affixed, and hereunto sets his her hand as of the day and year written. Although it lists all of us, should we specify that or just leave? It seems as though it should say not just chairman and treasurer, it should say state appointee, assistant treasurer, vice chair, that sort of thing. I don't know, might be in, does anyone
The
have?
board, I would just put it as the Board of Commissioners.
I like that. Anyone else have a comment about that?
No, I agree.
Okay, so on the last page, in witness whereof, the Easton Housing Authority has caused their presence to be signed by its duly authorized Board of Commissioners. We will strike chairman and treasurer and replace it with Board of Commissioners. And I think we've covered just about everything. And
I do have one more thing. Number 18, I think is a legacy from the three-year contract with 2 years. I believe it should read, I don't know if we need the language in there at all, unless you want renewal language in there, Kathy, that we have to notify you a certain amount of time if we were not to want to renew it. That's a protection for you, right? If that board didn't want to renew your contract, that they could, they would have to give you, a lot of times it's 6 months, 9 months. Sort of a notification that they planned on doing that 6 months. And I know that if you go, I don't think you can do a contract in the state of Massachusetts for more than 5 years. I know I
Okay.
can't do it without contractors, my security contract, my, those contracts. So that this agreement shall be, I'd say you get rid of the first, sentence completely. And then in the event that it decides not to renew and extend the contract, the authority shall notify the executive director on or before, and that's something negotiable. Again, that's your protection, so that the day
Right.
before your contract ends, the board can't say to you, no, we've decided to go in another direction.
So could we do 90 days? Is that fair?
90 days is more than fair. Again, I've seen 6 months in a 5-year contract.
Okay.
Would you prefer the 6 months, Kathy?
No, I think 90 days would be adequate. That would be fine.
Okay.
Are there any other discussions on this item number 18? So the way I understand this, item number 18, the first sentence will be stricken that starts that and ends, decides not to renew. That will be stricken. And number 18 will now read, in the event that it decides not to renew, in the event that the authority we don't want to, as it was mentioned in the previous sentence. Okay, well, in the event that the authority decides not to renew and extend said contract, the authority shall so notify the executive director on or before 90 days. Such notification shall be given to the executive director in writing pursuant to a duly recorded vote of the authority. Is that acceptable to everyone? And we don't even have to change the it. We can leave it because it is mentioned in the latter part of the sentence. So we can just leave it as it is and just add the 90 days. Sorry. Are there any further questions or discussions on this draft?
Can I just ask a question of Tom, please? So on the contract, it should be dated April 1st, where that's our budget year? Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
DHCD is never going to approve this contract.
Right.
It's not word for word what they've written, but it's certainly a very fair contract to the Housing Authority. I think it's a fair housing contract to you. And if the Board of Commission, I think that's why it's important to have all 5 board members sign it, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, well, I can redraft it and circulate it if the board would like me to for everybody to sign.
And Kathy, I'm willing to, when you've redrafted it, if you email me,
Absolutely.
I will be happy to proofread, because this is important to me because it protects you. That's why I want it right.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So if I could make a motion to approve the contract for Kathy Steiger as Executive Director for 5 years, beginning April 1st, 2021, as amended and reviewed by the chair, to be signed once they're approved by that review of the chair.
I'll
Second.
second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. We'll take Chris Ann's second. Okay, thank you very much, Tom. And thank you very much, Chris Ann and Dennis.
Thank
We
you,
have
Pam.
a
I'm going to be
motion.
sending my documents to you from now on. I'd like you to take a look at them before, probably even my emails.
Only the really important ones that, you know, you don't
Okay.
want your foot in a snare.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to. Okay, so we have a motion by our state appointee, Tom Tebow, and a second by Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy to approve the draft as revised by the board in this discussion at this meeting, as amended by the board, and to be reviewed by the chairperson and ultimately signed by all 5 of the board members. It was a motion by Tom Tebow and a second by Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy. We will do a roll call, yes or no voice vote. Commissioner Don Burrows,
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Tebow,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Ann Sheedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennis Sheedy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Widdop votes yes, so it is unanimous. It has been approved, contingent upon a second review.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you for putting that together for us, Kathy.
Congratulations, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yes.
I look forward to continuing my work here at the Housing Authority.
I look forward to working with you.
I saw you just trying to get that out nicely. Following our conversations of the last 2 days.
Okay, I'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is our executive director's monthly report for April.
How's Champs going, Kathy?
Oh, just fabulous. It is by far the most detrimental thing that the department ever could have put together in order to house people. It is just beyond unnecessary what they've done.
So at the Mass Narrow Board meeting today, it was discussed at length the detriments of CHAMP that are being, that all authorities are facing. And it's getting to the point that there are many authorities with vacant units that are ready, that they cannot lease, that are sitting vacant for months. And it's also getting to the point that the maintenance staffs are not being motivated any longer to prepare vacant units in the time frame because units are sitting there prepared and not being leased. Mass Narrow Board decided that it was time to start revisiting this. We're going to be sitting down with Mass Law Reform Institute and Mass Union of Tenants as a starting point, and then we're going to obviously try and work from there. But everyone is in the same boat that this CHAMP is really setting us back. We're looking to also take reports off our vacancy reports and show how we used to be able to rent units so much more efficiently and quickly, and things were not sitting vacant for months on end ready. So they have defeated their own, what they thought was going to be the purpose of CHAMP.
I think you're starting in the right place. Mass Union, Tenants Union, and Mass Law Reform both advocated for a lot of the things that are slowing it down, and not for ulterior motives. This is consequences I'm sure they did not anticipate. So if we can get those people to come to the table and talk about changing it. I'm sure DHCD won't have, arguments. I hope they won't.
I hope.
Because as you can see, there are multiple people, whoever ends up in those apartments, Kathy, will have waited months and months and months longer than they had to.
Correct, and we'll have to go back in and dust them up again by the time we get somebody in there. It is so counterproductive to our mission as a housing authority. And it kills any director, any staff member, any applicant to see these units sitting when there should be people in them. It's so disheartening, quite honestly.
And it seriously did not happen. I mean, maybe it was somewhat unusual. Most housing authorities had their units rented easily within 2 weeks of them being ready, off the list that we used to be able to maintain ourselves.
We would literally, maintenance would be going out the back door and the new tenant would be moving in. Literally,
Yeah.
I mean, they had it down to a science here, quite truthfully, even before I came here. This crew works great together. The maintenance staff works great. They can turn these units over without blinking an eye. And then Dawn was just great with making, I mean, as soon as we got a vacancy, she was working on that vacant to get somebody screened and in that unit. And typically they were ready to go the day the unit was ready.
But one of the other major stumbling blocks with CHAMP is the main emphasis being focused on the emergency applications. And then even with the uploading of documents so that you can, it still may not be sufficient by the time you review what's been uploaded. It's like you almost have to go back to scratch to kind of make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and you have to go chasing after things that aren't there, that should have been there. It's
Right.
everything about it just continues to spiral in the wrong direction. We know we need to be approaching legislators as well. I've often thought that it won't be long before it's going to hit the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to finally make it move.
We're getting a lot more people challenging that we're turning down emergency preferences because there's no documentation. And then they have to have the private conference with them via Zoom, and you have to allow them more time to provide more documentation.
Yeah, everyone was saying they were doing a lot more hearings than they've ever had to do in the past, and the time that comes into play with all of those, just everything is, just makes it way longer than it needs to be. And once again, we're not generally housing our local folk.
No, not at all.
You're rather quiet, Dennis. I know this is a sore subject.
Oh, I know the whole Eisenhower Drive quick map. It looks like, Kathy, you've done 5 lists that 200 people, and you're probably no closer to a solid prospective tenant than you were on poll 1.
Correct.
That's a shame.
I know.
And like Commissioner Tebow said, people who finally get tenanted, they've waited for months, longer than they should have, and it's
Absolutely.
Kathy, I want to thank you very much for detailing the steps. I feel that this report that you've given us spells out what you're up against in detail, just the facts, man. Here it is. Here's what's going on. And I'm really glad that we have this in black and white. And I can, it should have one, you know how it's on a draft paper, it'll say draft across the middle of it, so you'll know it's a draft. This one should have exasperating across.
Yes, it should. It should. You're right.
But I'm glad it's here in black and white. Thank you, Kathy.
You're very welcome.
Is the abatement all done, Kathy?
Yeah, actually, we just had final walkthrough today. It's complete.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, they did a great job. The house is great. And again, any commissioner that would like to come and see it, just let us know. We'd be more than happy to show you.
It's gonna be vacant for a while.
I think so.
200 people. Wow.
Mhm.
I remember, well, we shouldn't have a list that's 200 people long for the one house that we have. And if we were
Correct.
running it out of Easton, we would have a family ready to go a long time ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And at some point, it may fall upon boards to start writing letters.
Yeah.
With these kinds of details and saying that we are not supportive of the CHAMP program as it exists. It is certainly a detriment to the authority.
Yes, it is.
So Dennis, you want to ask about CHAMP again?
I'm glad I brought it up.
Can we move on to the brighter news of the last paragraph here of the $34,000
Spend down.
budget funding? Been doing some on a shopping spree, a spring shopping spree.
We've been shopping and shopping.
Well, I think you've made some very good choices. Obviously, a generator is always needed. The tables outside during COVID, let's get people outside,
Yep.
socializing, get this time over with. So I think that's a great way to invest the money.
Yep. We worked diligently on coming up with ideas. So yeah, we replaced a lot of things. The guys still have to put together the picnic tables, but they're going to start working on that. They wanted to clean up the grounds first.
Of course.
The new tables and chairs look beautiful, and
Yeah,
how
those look
they've
very
set it up by the Parker Terrace gazebo is beautiful. It really looks. It's just.
And the ramps for Parker Terrace are going to come in handy. The plywood ramps I've always had an issue with since I've been here. These other ramps will be movable. We're actually going to have them installed so that all the units will have them. It just makes it easier to not have to maneuver that step.
And also congratulations on vaccine clinic number 2.
Yes.
Yep. Couldn't do it without the town. The Board of Health, the fire department, the emergency response teams that volunteered their time to walk around and monitor the residents for the 15 minutes after each shot. It was just great. It was really nice to be working so well with the town and to have them so forthcoming and wanting to help out, and just a great group of people. It was wonderful.
It's awesome.
Wasn't feeling so good the next 2 days, but worth it.
Kathy, the generator for Elise Circle, I wanted to just make sure that that's an adequate size.
We already have,
Taking
yes,
into account
absolutely.
the renovations, and also does that include the installation and the hookup for the generator?
No, it does not.
So
We
that'll
have a project. We have a project going on up there with the funding from Representative Claire Cronin that we're working with the designer on, and with the RCAT. And the Federal Pacific panel that is up there now needs to be replaced, which is part of this. So even if we don't have enough to do a change order in this job, we can do a little project in our upcoming capital plan to include wiring this, but the panel will be big enough to take the load from that generator. It's not that big of a generator. It will only power the lights and the heat in the building. It won't power the washing machines, which is all we really needed for that building up there. Because the main generator is here at Parker, which is the larger site.
I guess I'm just curious if what it's going to do will satisfy. I remember a meeting we had a couple of years ago where residents had asked about getting a generator for release. And do you feel it'll satisfy that?
It should, because it will supply lights. The refrigerator will work if anybody had medications they need to store, and it will have heat, which is the sole purpose. Quite honestly, if we have no power for a few days, I don't think laundry is a necessity. It's just the heat and the lighting up there and the refrigerator.
Yeah, you couldn't get a generator, well, you could, but it would just be ridiculous to do, dryers,
Right.
which is.
It doesn't down here either, and that's a big generator that we have here.
So this is a portable generator that can move to, no.
No, what is that? It will be stationary. It's like a home generator. It didn't need to be that big. I actually worked with Greg Caswell from ARCAT, and he's been working with us on the design of the community room, and he was the one that said to me, this is what you need for that size room for
Good.
this kind of a capacity. So
It's a diesel?
it's a diesel. I have it here. I don't know if it's a dual fuel. I think it can go on dual fuel.
So it will need a shelter of its own?
No.
Sometimes they need to be housed.
Yeah, no, these don't. It's already, it's a Generac. It has a
Self-
shelter of its own. It
The
can be out in the
generator
elements.
and self-contained, yep. That's good.
And we couldn't have anything too big up there because there's really no location to put it. So it had to be sizable that we could fit it on the pad that's currently up there.
Okay. Any further questions on the executive director's report? Maybe I would entertain a motion to accept it and place it on file.
So moved.
Second,
Was that Tom?
yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Dennis Sheedy and a second by Commissioner Tom Tebow to accept the executive director's report to place it on file. We'll do a roll call, yes or no voice vote. Commissioner Don Burrows,
Yes.
Commissioner Tebow,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Sheedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennis Sheedy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Widdop, yes, so it's unanimous to accept the executive director's report for April 2021 and place it on file. No callers. The next item on the agenda is to schedule the next meeting. I'm showing May 11th. How does that work for everyone's schedule?
Fine with me.
That's fine.
That's fine.
When's the town election?
April 24th.
Yes.
That's what I thought. So, should we do the, realignment of the board or at
I
that
have
meeting?
that for the next meeting.
Okay.
We need somebody for the community preservation as well. Just food for thought. Mr.
What do you-
Sheedy.
I could tell you were looking at me.
Did you have any questions, Commissioner Burrows?
No. Okay.
And will that day work for you, May 11th?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so we are scheduling the next meeting of the Easton Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for May 11th, Tuesday at 5 p.m. And I will now entertain a meeting to adjourn unless there is any questions or comments. There was no callers. Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Dennis Sheedy and a second by Commissioner Tom Tebow to adjourn the meeting of the Easton Housing Authority Tuesday, April 13th at 6 p.m. All those, let's see, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Burrows,
Yes.
Commissioner Tebow,
Yes.
Commissioner Christine Sheedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennis Sheedy,
Yes.
Executive Director Steiger, is that okay with you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and Commissioner Widdop votes yes, so
You have
it's
to ask me
unanimous.
twice. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you,
night.
Kathy.
Yeah, bye-bye.
You too.
Good night.
Night.
Happy spring.
Yes.